welcome in BYU assistant head coach and the special teams coordinator and linebackers coach, Ed Lamb, on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline via Zoom. Ed, it's good to see you back in your office. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, well, here we are. We're all on campus, but only you guys can actually shake hands and be together, I guess. Good to visit with you, even though I've had way too much Zoom in my life recently.
Seriously.
We're all experts now. Virtual backgrounds and muting and headphones.
Oh, I don't have any of that.
Never mind.
Ed, I say 85 days away from the scheduled start of the season. What's the first thing that goes through your mind?
Well, I think I can speak for all of our program is just it can't get here soon enough. With what's been going on, the feeling of isolation and not having the opportunities to compete and prepare in the way that our guys are used to. I think for everyone, it'd be if we can get back as soon as possible to some normalcy with the way that these guys are used to preparing, then to me, the earlier the better.
And right now, volunteer workouts are going on. There's discussion, Ed, of perhaps the NCAA sanctioning a 6-week build-up to the season. That's typically been about 4 weeks. So we are about a month away, potentially, if that gets passed, from fall camp beginning. What are your thoughts on the potential that we are a month away from an extended fall camp?
Yeah, there's, each time the NCAA kind of bounces something around, we hear about it, and then we're talking amongst ourselves, and then with coaches and other programs. And I know a lot of coaches are leaning towards, say, well, if we can get going and in some part of July, then we're just going to go straight through with these maybe OTAs or a little bit different type of preparation than maybe we've had in years past, and then all the way through the season. I don't personally think that may give the type of benefit that we're looking for. I know we're behind a little bit in preparing for the season, but every program is, and we've got to remember that these guys are passionate about what they do, and they're going to be prepared. I think physically pretty close to what they normally are. I think some well-placed days off, even if it's 1 or 2 days here and there, will be really critical throughout July and August in hopes of keeping the guys mentally and physically ready to go, not just for the beginning of the season, but for the whole season.
Yeah, the mental aspect of thinking about spending 6 weeks of fall camp with each other is something else, because after like week 3, it feels like the guys are ready to knock each other out. So if you extend that, things could get very interesting, it would seem.
That's right. These are competitive guys who have had their competitive outlet taken away. And so we have to find a way to sustain that drive throughout the long season and the camp leading up to it.
And they start. I'm remembering my mission. How I wanted to knock out some of my companions after 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let alone football. And let's talk about that too, because we have yet to figure out, Ed, some of the safety regulations relative to football. Because we're essentially saying, okay, social distance, but hey, when you play football, you guys just do your thing and it'll be fine. So we've certainly got to figure some things out in that regard of the risk we're willing to take, I guess, to have football.
Yeah, absolutely. You said the word right there. It's risk. And that's what everyone who is involved in these decisions right now, they're just managing risk. And there may, I know there's some research out there to suggest that maybe the risk of all of this is not quite, doesn't quite justify the measures. But for those making the decisions, I don't think there's enough of that information right now to justify just turning everyone loose and letting us get back to it. So we're being very conscientious right now in our program and in the weight room and with the boys training, making sure that we're coming back in the way that the latest research is indicating that we should. And hopefully every program's doing that, and we keep marching towards some normalcy.
Ed Lamb with us on BYU Sports Nation, assistant head coach, special teams coordinator, and linebackers coach. Ed, while you're managing risk and the health of all of your guys, you're also managing what looks like a pretty talented linebacker core. Let's start with this guy, however, who is floating, we think, away from the linebackers into the secondary, Zane Anderson. What role will he play as a linebacker, if at all?
I think probably the best way to say it would be like within our program and language that we use talking to Zane and the other guys. Zane is going to cover tight ends. And sometimes linebackers do that in some schemes, and sometimes Sometimes safeties do that. And so we have to continue to move toward the scheme or the personnel group that gets our best players on the field most consistently. Zane is certainly one of those guys that we have to take into consideration in that effort. And what he does best to me is hold edges, run sideline to sideline, and cover tight ends. And so whatever position we put him at, that's most likely what he'll be doing.
Another guy that perhaps is switching positions is Max Tooley to safety. Is that the case?
Yeah, and so Max is a little bit different. That Max got enough playing time last year that he really showed an ability to do a lot of different things. But the impression that he made the most on everybody was that he will courageously throw his body around in the name of BYU football victory. And so we want to find places for him on the field. It may be, again, it may be safety, maybe linebacker, maybe defensive end. He's had some exposure to all of that now, and special teams as well. And so the closer that guys like that get to being on the field all the time, the more we have to really define what their position is. But at this point, Max has a lot of abilities, and we want to use that versatility.
I love that. Courageously throw your body around
in the name of
BYU football.
And I want him to say that as he's tackling too. In the name of BYU football. You've talked about contact courage too. That's a big deal for you. A guy that's going to throw himself in there, right?
Yeah, I think that's the game. And just that's basically my foundational philosophy from day one, or letter A in recruiting, and then is finding guys that at least have the potential to develop that confidence, putting them in the weight room, getting them stronger, building their confidence over time, and then seeing that to come to fruition on the field. That's what I enjoy most about football.
Ed Lamb with us on BYU Sports Nation. Coach, let's talk about Chaz Ru. What's his role right now? What's his status with the team, and what do you expect him to do once the season starts?
Yeah, Chaz is, as far as the status with the team, Chaz is training with the boys. He's preparing for the season, and so I think whatever he had, with law enforcement and with BYU honor code, that, at least from my perspective, that appears to be something that he's worked through or is working through, and isn't in any way affecting his role with the team. So that's a great thing, because he's one of a few guys that have a lot of experience for us. He can play anywhere on the edge, from the outside linebacker to the safety position. He's even got a little bit of action in nickel and dime packages at inside linebacker. And his ability to find the football is something that we have to have.
Absolutely. USC plays hurt in overtime. Toledo has that amazing strip, recovery. It was awesome. Kavika Fonua, to a lot of people, they may not know, he led the team in tackles. He's back, a guy that's played all over the place, running back, linebacker. What do you expect from him at middle linebacker this year?
Yeah, he's consistently given us, since he first stepped on the field. My first year here, 2016, he led the team in special teams tackles. So he's always been a guy that just has a knack for finding the football, bringing the ball carrier down, and plays with a lot of speed, a lot of strength, always in great body position. And he's a guy that we're really counting on. We really have, I think, 5 guys: Chaz, Kavika, Keenan Peely, Peyton Willgar, and Isaiah Kafue, that have significant experience. A bunch of other guys in the mix, but those guys have played and made plays for BYU, more than 1 or 2 games.
In the name of BYU football, right?
In the name.
Well, you say those names, and again, just depth and experience kind of float to the front of the mind. With that depth, is the linebacker core the deepest group on the BYU defense?
Well, that can change really quickly. I know some positions that we're counting on for the experience that they bring. The secondary. This is our most experienced secondary, especially out on the edges at the corner spots. To have this many guys that have that type of length, speed, and game experience, getting Chris Wilcox back, and then mixing in Isaiah Herron, D'Lo, and then Keenan Ellis. Those guys have all played significantly. We haven't had that type of advantage in the past.
There's a lot of experience you mentioned at linebacker, and I want to highlight maybe another guy or two there. Peyton Willgar, before the season, we all thought he would lead the team in interceptions, right? No. He ends up having 3, and he really showed out. He went from, people don't know his name, to this really stud player. What went into that development for Peyton Willgar, and what do you expect this year as a sophomore?
I think he followed the script for a developmental player, which is a little bit under-recruited in high school. Body was really changing. He was a tall, thin safety in high school. And because I was at Southern Utah during his high school years, I had tracked him from the time he was a young player and offered him down there. And then we really tried to convince him, you're scholarship worthy. We like you at BYU. It doesn't matter what other offers you have or don't have, but we didn't have a scholarship. And so he agreed to come walk on and earned it very quickly, obviously, with his play. And also went from about 175 or 180 pounds as a junior in high school to now where he's at 240 plus pounds.
Whoa.
And a lot of strength and still can run.
A lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the middle of the night, right?
I don't know his secret. The strength came along with it. So there's a lot of work in there.
All right, one guy who we haven't talked in detail specifically about during at least this interview is Isaiah Kafue. We're going to have him on later in the show. What does he bring to the BYU defense?
He's our most experienced linebacker, and in terms of number of years and how long he's been contributing. But and he brings what you would expect from that. He really, I think, sees himself as important on and off the field to BYU football. So he's been very vocal in his leadership. He always has a smile, something positive to say to both coaches and teammates. And so his value goes way beyond what he brings on the field, and what he brings on the field is substantial.
Looking forward to seeing Keenan Peely and then Isaiah's brother Jackson as well in that group. Tell us about some of the newcomers, a guy like Josh Wilson, who was highly touted coming out of Corner Canyon. Of course, Zach's younger brother, who is a potential stud in the future for BYU as well. Yeah,
the eye test on Josh Wilson, he looks like a typical middle linebacker. He's not quite as tall and long as some of our other guys, but really where he made a lot of noise or would surprise people is his ability to play the pass. I think he may have led the state, or at one time was leading the state in interception returns for touchdowns, and really has a knack for getting in the passing lanes as a middle linebacker. That's a huge benefit to any defense. So excited about what he can bring early on. Pepe Tanavasa is a guy that played just last year, was ineligible, but he played at Navy before he transferred here. He has shown a lot to everybody on the team. He's definitely going to be in the mix. Ben Bywater's one who redshirted last year. Drew Jensen has come a long way fighting back from injury, and we're starting to see the potential that we knew he had coming out of high school.
The insights that you bring, Ed, are always appreciated, the attention to detail, and thank you for giving us another theme for BYU athletics moving forward. In the name of BYU football.
Courage, contact courage.
Courage
in
to
the name of BYU
throw
football.
your body around.
In the name of that contribution that I made, can I get 10 seconds? I'm also coaching the Nickelbacks, and we have 3 guys that we didn't talk about, and I don't think the safeties coach will be bringing them up either. But if the young boys are watching this, Shamon Willis had an excellent spring. Ammon Hanneman is a young player we're super excited about that can play both linebacker and safety, and he fits in at the nickel. And then Caleb Christensen has so much raw athletic ability right now. Excited about all 3 of those guys.
Hey, yeah, let's spread the love, man.
Love it.
Let's go. They've earned it. Ed, great to catch up with you, man. Hope you're staying healthy, and all the best to you and your family.
Likewise. Thank you, guys.
You got it. Ed Lamb on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why, we show how.
Here's why.